Hi, we're going to be talking about Savitch book 3.3, more about C++ loop statement, and we are on the part 4, which loop to use. So we're going to go over this. So we have learned about the loops, do while loop, and a for loop. And of course, we throw the switch statement in there too. And we're going to talk about all of these things. Of course, switch statement is not a loop, but we're going to talk about all these things. So when do we want to use which one? So of course, the way that we're going to be doing it is you will do your design document. In your design document, you're going to be thinking about the loop that you want to do, and you're going to be writing some kind of a pseudocode for it. And then you're going to translate that pseudocode to the actual code. That's where you're going to be writing the actual code. And in there, when you're translating your pseudocode to actual code, you can kind of have a good idea of how or which one you want to use. So generally, with the while loop, we have something before the while loop. We talked about set, check, and change. So we have something before the while loop that's going to be set, and we're going to check the condition, and then we're going to change something. So with the while loop, there is a possibility that the while loop does not going to execute at all. So we use that. Our sample was about the input validation. So you would display a message to the user. User is going to put an input. Then if the input is not in the range that you want, you're going to go inside the while loop, you display a message, and they're going to ask for the input again. So I'm asking for age. The use put some age in there, and if that age is not in the range that I'm looking for, I'm going to go inside the while loop. So there is a possibility that if the input was correct, I wouldn't go inside that while loop. The do while is the kind of upside down while, meaning that it's not going to check. It's going to check at the end. That means it's going to do something, and then it's going to check. This can cause some problems because sometimes we might not want to go inside the while loop. In my software engineering, I learned that the while loop is more in line with software engineering. And since then, I never ever used the do while. So the while loop is more structured. We know the condition. We know it's going to be set before it. And if the condition is not good, we're not going to go through it. But that's the way it is, and your book is using it for repeating your program. So you're going to run the program one time, and then you're going to ask the user if they want to continue, and then you can go back and repeat it again. The for loop is interesting in a way that we are looking for, first of all, numeric calculation, something that you want to go in the series. You start from somewhere, you end somewhere with some kind of a condition. So the variable is by equal amount that's going to change. That means I'm calling them a step. So you can have a step 1, meaning that you're going to just add 1 to your original number till you get to some kind of a boundary, or you can add 2, or you can deduct if you want to go the other way around. So I can go from 10 to 0, or I can go from 0 to 10, or I can step multiple times. We saw that in the previous one. So how do we use these things? So first thing first, I'm always going to start with for loop. If I cannot do the for loop, then I'm going to look into the while. So the for loop is much better choice than the while. And I mentioned it about the switch, that the switch is the better choice than the if else statement, even though in some software engineering are saying that switch is not a good choice. That's what we're going to be doing in this class. We're going to use switch first, and if the switch doesn't work, then we go to if else statement. Here, if I cannot use the for loop, meaning what, I don't have the starting point, ending point with some kind of an increment or decrement, then I'm going to be using the while loop. Of course, with the while loop, I do understand that in certain circumstances, I might never ever execute the while loop. the do while, upside down while, same thing again. If I can use the for loop, I will use this for loop. And if I cannot use the for loop, and I want to be sure that the body of this one is going to be executed at least once before we check anything. So we're going to just do it and then check it. Of course, that can cause some problem in some areas. So I'm not going to go crazy with the do while. And as I said earlier, I am not going to use do while at all. So we have some exit point that we can use the break. So remember, break is going to break off your loop. So you have a loop going on, you see a condition, you go out of it. So we were talking about our homework and lab, and I talked about it that if you're looking for certain number and you receive it in the middle of your loop, you don't have to continue the rest of the loop because you know it's going to be a one unique number, and that's all it's going to be. So as soon as I see that I'm not going to move forward anymore, I'm going to stop. So break is going to take you outside of your loop. So we're going to check a condition, and if that condition is going to be true, then we're going to get out of the loop. The key is this, if you have nested loop, if you have a loop inside a loop inside a loop, the only inner one is going to be getting out. Remember, if a statement is not a loop. So you're going to have an if statement, and the break is going to take you out of the most inner loop. So if you have another loop somewhere else, it's not going to break out the whole program. There are some commands to get out of your program, but this is just going to get out of a loop. So let me go through this. So this is the demonstration for the break. We are having our loop over here. We're going with the while loop. We have the plus plus count. Remember that we talked about this, the pre and post for the plus plus. Remember that when you have it pre, that means it's going to add first, then it's going to check it. If you put the plus plus on the other side of it, it's going to check it, then it's going to add it. So we're going to be off by one. So we got to practice on this and remember this as we go along. So if we get something, we remember here, we are looking for a negative number. So as soon as I see a positive number, I'm going to stop. So we're going to go through this, and remember, because I don't know how many number the user is going to enter, I am not going to be using a for loop. I'm going to be using the while loop. But as soon as I see a number that is positive or zero, I'm going to get out of the loop. And this is a while loop. So the while loop, you can stay there forever if you don't change it. Meaning what? If I don't read the next number, or if the user never ever puts a positive number, this loop can go on forever. Next thing I want to talk about is continue. Continue is going to take you back to the top. Some circumstance is going to come up, and you say, you know what, I see this, I don't want to do the rest of these, but I want to go back up. So there is going to be a condition that I just want to go back up. So I've seen something and say, you know what, I don't want to do the rest of this loop, I want to go back up. So that's continue. So we have continue and we have break. Break is going to take you outside of the loop. Continue is going to take you back up to the loop. So this is going to be the end of this part, and this is the activity that you're going to be working on. Take some a little bit of time, go over these things. Be sure you understand these. Of course, we had some assignment. We were going over this. So be sure you understand this, and then we're going to talk more about it in our class.